All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Our next presentation is going to be conducted by my good friend Noe Torres and myself. And we're going to be speaking to you about Area 51, America's most secret military base. Last summer, we gave a presentation in Las Vegas at the invitation of the Smithsonian-affiliated National Atomic Testing Museum. So we gave a presentation there, and today we're going to take you on a virtual field trip to Area 51 and tell you about its history and some of the secrets. So let's ride the extraterrestrial highway. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Noe Torres, myself.
Okay, this is a fascinating story that we're going to share with you. A lot of people are very interested in Area 51. It has a long history that began during the Cold War that our country was engaged in with the former Soviet Union. And it didn't start off to be what it is today. It had a long history of evolving. Initially, it was primarily a CIA operation, then they needed pilots, so they involved the Air Force, and then over time, it has become predominantly an Air Force installation. But it's very, very interesting the way the base developed. Ruben and I had the opportunity to go out there this summer. We had a tremendous time speaking at the National Atomic Testing Museum. We actually had in our audience in front of us, talk about a tough audience, we had a couple of guys who worked at Area 51, veterans of the development of stealth aircraft technologies there. And very nice guys. One of them spoke to us afterward about how much he enjoyed our presentation. So we're going to share with you the presentation that we did. And as I say, a lot of people are interested in Area 51, including one of our presidential candidates, or at least one of them, because when she was speaking in New Hampshire a few weeks back, she made these remarks. She said that if elected, she's going to get to the bottom of UFO secrecy in the US government, and she would like to send a delegation to Area 51 to find out exactly what is going on there. So people always say that those of us who talk about UFOs and write books about UFOs and are interested in UFOs are kind of out there. Well, apparently at least one presidential candidate is out there with us. So we just wanted to share some selfies that we took at the National Atomic Testing Museum. And we had a great time. It's interesting because, as you know, most people don't go to Las Vegas to go to museums. I don't know if you knew that or not, but if you're in Las Vegas, it really is worth your while to just go off the strip a little bit, just down one of the side roads. And it's on Flamingo Road. And visit the National Atomic Testing Museum. You'll be able to trace the development of nuclear weapons. They have films of the early bomb tests. They have testimonies of the people who were involved in the development of stealth aircraft. It's just a fascinating museum, and it is an affiliate of the Smithsonian Institution, so a wonderful place. We were just thrilled to death when we arrived there. It was like two kids in a candy store, and we were looking around. They opened up the gift shop after hours for us. It wasn't open to the public yet, and they gave us a discount on t-shirts, so we were just so excited. I'm just going to play a little clip of this. The sound is a little muffled on this because we were in our hotel room and suddenly this came on, the evening news broadcast in Las Vegas, and Ruben said, take video, take video. So sorry about that.
Classified military base Noe Torres and Ruben Uriarte will deliver a presentation on the history of Area 51, including the role played by Nevada in the Cold War, some of the amazing spy planes which were developed out there, and maybe a UFO story or two. The program begins at 7 p.m. Public's invited, and we have more information on our website.
That was our big moment in Las Vegas, so how about a round of applause? We wanted to hit the slots after that, okay? How did Ruben and I become interested in UFOs? Rather than us boring you with our life story, we have a couple of very short clips about us.
Welcome back, everyone. It is coming up on 6/18. Do you believe in UFOs? Those unidentified flying objects? Well, we found someone who not only believes, but he's written several books on the subject. Here's Rick Diaz with today's Con Mi Gente.
Roswell, New Mexico is famous for its UFO incident, but do you know there was a similar one close to us near Laredo?
In July 7th, 1948, two U.S. military jets supposedly chased a UFO across Texas heading south toward the border.
Noe Torres is the librarian at McAllen High School, and he's written the book on the Laredo incident.
And supposedly, this object crashed about 30 miles southwest of downtown Laredo in Mexico, in Mexican territory, near the Rio Sabinas and near the highway that goes to Mexico City.
In fact, Noe has written 6 different books on UFOs, and he has seen a growing interest in South Texas.
I just did a presentation about it at the Edinburgh Public Library, and we had standing room only, and we just had a UFO conference in Laredo, which was massively attended. We had over 1,000 people.
One book is the result of Noe and his co-writer being invited by the History Channel to trace one UFO incident.
We were with a film crew from the History Channel for the program UFO Hunters. So we went out there to where supposedly the UFO and the plane crashed in the Chihuahuan Desert. That's south of Presidio, Texas. Supposedly this small plane was struck by a UFO mid-air collision in August of 1974.
And these are part of an airplane he and the film crew found, and while they're not sure if it was the same plane...
This is the actual skin of the airplane, the outer skin of the airplane, which is chiefly aluminum. And this has been subjected to intense heat.
Noe has also written The Ultimate Guide to the Sites in Roswell and is a featured speaker at Roswell's annual festival. So is he a believer?
I have always believed that it's highly probable that we have been visited by other species in the past and probably are still being visited. Roswell was listed as in the book 1,000 Places You Must See Before You Die.
So do you believe in UFOs? For Channel 5 News, I'm Rick Diaz, Con Mi Gente.
Still to come, the biggest tech companies are taking a stand against scams on the internet.
The job of a UFO hunter is the quest for ultimate truth. They seek proof that we are not alone in the universe. They present evidence that we are being visited by beings from other worlds. But does proof of such visits exist? And if so, would that change people's opinions of UFOs and UFO hunters?
I'm a UFO hunter because I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's going on this planet. I want to know how it connects, how it affects us, and I want to solve the mystery, and through that, I'll do whatever it takes to get there. And that's why it's important for me to continue on this hunt for the truth.
UFO hunter Ruben Uriarte has also experienced firsthand the physiological effects that Moore has encountered.
Over the years, that I've had the opportunity walking into crop circles, I notice from a number of other people who are also in the formation sharing their bodily sensations, some of them feeling very dehydrated, some feeling nauseated. Sometimes that has happened to me too, where I feel nausea. It's a sense that there's some sort of sensation that's going on with you. We'll go out to the field with them, if they have any photographic evidence, like camcorders or still pictures or any of that, we take that under account. By the end, our main goal is to produce a summary, a report, which then goes to the National MUFON headquarters.
Okay, just a little bit about us and how over the years Ruben and I have worked together on many projects. We have written how many books now, Ruben? I've lost count. Is it about 6? And we've helped other UFO authors get started, and we've contributed to their books. So let's talk about Area 51, also known as Groom Lake, and also referred to by a number of other names. And the way Ruben and I first started, you know, we weren't really focused on Area 51, and it's interesting because if you're in the UFO research field, or if you're doing research for books, you tend to focus on the topics that you happen to be writing about at that time and doing research. Like, for example, when we did the Real Cowboys and Aliens, stories of UFO encounters in the Old West, we, you know, for a long period of time, we were focused in on all those UFO sightings from the 1800s in North America. So we tend to focus on those topics that we're currently working on, and so Area 51 really hadn't come on our radar screen, so to speak, until we did these 2 books, Mexico's Roswell. It was about a crash that happened just down past the Big Bend near Presidio, Texas. And then we also did the other Roswell, which is the book about the UFO crash that happened here near Del Rio, over in the Langtree area. So in the first book, we had some people involved in aviation kind of plot out the trajectory of the UFO that eventually collided midair with a small plane. And we found what was interesting is that if you project the trajectory forward, you know, in other words, if the crash hadn't happened, if you projected it forward, it seemed to be on a heading toward Nevada. So somebody raised the possibility that perhaps it was some kind of object that was being tested out of Groom Lake, out of Area 51. And that's certainly a possibility. Now that seems like a vast distance between the Texas border and Area 51, but not at the speeds at which this object was flying. It was clocked at near 2,000 miles per hour. So, I mean, that would be a very short hop. It was inbound from the Gulf of Mexico, spotted by radar in Corpus, and then made a 90-degree angle turn to the south, went along the Texas coast, and then made another 90-degree turn into northern Mexico, just south of Brownsville, Texas, and went on up, skirting the Rio Grande River. So,
just wanted to see.
Oh. If you don't use the mic, it powers down.
Oh, okay.
That wasn't
And
us.
also, just to go along with that too, is later we'll get into the presentation. Some of the testing that was done with experimental military aircraft in the U-2 program was a big project. It started out in Area 51, and eventually it was the spy plane was tested right here at Laughlin Air Force Base back in the 50s. So there is that connection.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, in the other book, you know, we had that UFO and we were told that after it crashed, it was brought over into the U.S. and it possibly ended up at Groom Lake. So another quasi-possible connection there. So very, very interesting. So that's when Ruben and I began doing some digging into what exactly is Area 51. We had seen some outlandish television documentaries and articles on the internet. By the way, you all know this, but 99% of what you see on the internet that's UFO related is totally, how can I say this and keep it G-rated, Ruben? Total junk. They fabricate pictures and videos of UFOs. You know, it's the routine that's gone on in UFO research since the early days when people were throwing hubcaps up into the air and taking pictures of them. Only now they're doing it with Photoshop and video processing and special effects, CGI. So whenever MUFON receives reports that contain photographs and video attached, it gets subjected to a great deal of analysis before we call it a true unexplained, because they do so much now to try to trick people. And of course, those of you know, well, what's a motivation, people ask for that? Well, there's a lot of money to be made from advertising impressions. If somebody puts up a video on YouTube of a fake UFO and they get millions of hits, that's money for them. So anyway, we followed the paper trail regarding the creation of Area 51 and found out very interesting stuff. For example, there have been a lot of documents that have been disclosed over the years about it. And the military base, as shown in this video, in this picture, was created in 1955, but it did not officially exist until 2013. That's just a little over 2 years ago. Any attempt that you or anybody would make, even a congressman, a senator, anybody, to pin down the government as to the existence of Area 51 as a military installation was met with stonewalling, denial. It did not officially exist. Now, when I say official, there was a lot of chatter about it, of course. Books had been written, people were talking that there were secret programs going on there, the military was testing all sorts of things, but the government kept denying. So people always ask us, if there really were UFOs, we would know by now. I mean, the government couldn't keep that secret. Well, yeah, they use a policy of denial and stonewalling, just like they did with Area 51. So a U.S. congressman wrote to the Department of the Air Force in the late 90s requesting to know with certainty whether Area 51 was actually an ongoing military installation. And this is what the response they got. Neither the Air Force nor the Department of Defense owns or operates any location known as Area 51. This is dated 1998, by the way. There are a variety of activities, some of which are classified, throughout what is often called Air Force's Nellis Range Complex. There is an operating location near Groom Dry Lake. Specific activities and operations conducted at the Nellis Range, both past and present, remain classified. We hope this information is helpful. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the Nevada test site where hundreds of above-ground nuclear tests were conducted in the 50s and lots of underground nuclear tests. This whole area is literally pulsing with radiation even today. Then we have this vast Nellis Air Force Range for testing bombs and weapons and aircraft, and the continuation of the range down here. And tucked safely in the middle, where most people who have any sense of reason would not dare go, because you've got radiation, you've got guards pointing weapons at you, you've got sensors on the ground and up on top of the mountain, surrounding hills and mountains. Most people of sane mind would not attempt to go there, and you have Area 51 tucked safely right in there. Las Vegas is down here. So we got to Groom Lake. We had a tour guide and we came in kind of the back way back here. We'll share some pictures and video that we took. Our last visit to the base was July 17th, and you're going to notice these things. Now, look at this picture, and there doesn't seem to be much there other than the sign warning that do not trespass onto an Air Force installation without written approval from the commander of the base. But when I press the button here magically, you're going to see a bunch of arrows pointing to things that you can't really see until we point them out. There's barbed wire stretched all along here, rolls of barbed wire, very hard to see. You've got a pickup truck that's up on this little ridge, and as we came closer to the entrance to the base, it would reorient its front end to always keep us in view. We stopped just for a moment about a mile away, well, maybe half a mile away, and it was pointed, the front of the pickup truck was pointed right at us. Then we went a little bit farther and looked, and it was turning to always have us in view. You also would hardly be able to notice an electronic surveillance tower right here, which I'll do close-ups on. Of course, in the pickup truck are armed men in camouflage gear. I was watching a National Geographic show on Area 51 a couple of nights ago, and one of the camouflage men, or camo men as they are affectionately known, said that even though in most cases they would just take down people who went across this invisible barrier, they would take them down, handcuff them, and leave them face down in the dirt until the sheriff's department arrived to take them to jail. In most cases, that's what they would do. However, they were authorized to pull the trigger on anyone who persisted beyond that. I'm going to play a little video that we took where you'll be able to see these features that I pointed out to you. I was trying to stay kind of behind cover. Let me go back to that.
While Noe's getting this set up, one of the obvious feelings that we had is we know we're being watched, not just by guards or security, but all these cameras that are there, and so it's heavily monitored.
So I was trying to kind of stay behind that warning sign so they wouldn't see me, so they wouldn't see me filming them filming us. So. So I was trying to get this electronic surveillance tower that's up here. And then the guys, you know, even when we were right up close, we parked our vehicle a couple hundred feet away and then walked up here. And so they turned the front of that pickup truck to look directly at us. And you'll see this road, they'll come right down this ridge within moments. And if you cross this imaginary line, they'll come down and take you down. And this is a close-up of it looks like two camo dudes, but the front windshield is tinted. It's got some sort of camouflaging itself, so it's difficult to see inside. So there are all these kinds of cameras and sensors. You know, they've got very sophisticated equipment out there that can detect, they can differentiate between the heat signature of a human being versus the heat signature of some wildlife. So they've got monitors planted in the ground that monitor vibration. They've got cameras that are taking pictures of you. They've got audio equipment. Ruben was cracking jokes in the van before we got out, and I said, Ruben, you got to be careful. They're monitoring our audio right now. Just kidding. He wasn't really. He was taking it very seriously, as we all were. Luckily, we went with an Area 51 tour guide that has been in that business for a really long time, and he's never gotten into trouble while taking groups out there. So this is a still frame that I captured from my video showing the pickup truck and the surveillance equipment. So the Dan Rather in me got the best of me, and I did a little stand-up monologue there at the entrance. We're standing right at the entrance of Area 51, one of the country's most secure military installations, which until just 2013, in fact, the government did not admit that this installation actually existed. So now, due to the release of several documents about Area 51, which were released under the Freedom of Information Act, we now can establish with certainty that this is an actual military base operation here in the middle of the Mojave Desert in Nevada. So this, where I'm standing here, is as far as any member of the public can ever go. In fact, very few people have gone beyond here, other than the employees of the base, those who are engaged in the various activities of the base, and a few public officials who were invited to come here. This base has a very long and interesting history. I'm standing here in July 2015. All right, enough of that. We might have to add to that guest list Hillary Clinton, since she wants to go there, not just by herself either. She wants to take a delegation, so. Of course, that's a big if. We're going to show you a video that was prepared by the tour company that took us out there. If you're in Vegas, take some time away from the slots and the poker. And this is a great tour.
Area 51. For decades, this remote top-secret military facility in the middle of the high desert and mountain ranges of central Nevada was the best-kept secret on planet Earth, to the extent that even map makers were disallowed to show any roads leading to this non-existent location. It's said they have a crashed alien spaceship at this base and are reverse engineering its technology. Satellite imagery shows not only the existence of this base and its dozens of hangars and buildings, but an airstrip that is more than 23,000 feet long. They say Area 51 is virtually closed, that no one works there any longer. If that were the case, then why are there numerous daily flights carrying hundreds of workers from secret hangars at Las Vegas International Airport to Area 51? Our day starts with a stop at the Janet Airways hangars to show you the actual fleet of aircraft that, for years, has been hiding in plain sight alongside the Las Vegas Strip. We then pass by Nellis Air Force Base on the northern edge of Las Vegas and just outside the restricted airspace of the vast 4,700 square mile Nellis test range as we start our journey into the remote reaches of the Nevada high desert. This exciting and intellectual tour is not only a quest in search for answers, but it is stunningly scenic as we travel through some of Nevada's most beautiful and picturesque desert landscapes. Our next stop is a mysterious dry lake where many UFO sightings have occurred.
Okay, just to give you a sense of what the tour offers, we really enjoyed going on it, and it was basically a tour conducted just for Ruben and me, which made it really enjoyable. So we did have one other photographer from Sweden. So what happens if you do cross the line and find yourself in the forbidden zone? This same tour company actually had one of its drivers become distracted while giving the tour, and there was heck to pay, as you'll see.
But on May 28th, it happened. Driver Dennis Ryan and his 4 passengers, all of it recorded inside and out. The video shows Ryan and group having a good time, zipping toward the edge of Area 51. At precisely the wrong moment, one of the tourists asked Ryan a question about sports books. It was just enough of a distraction that he blew right past the warning signs and kept on going. After 45 seconds or so, Ryan started looking around, wondering where the camo dudes were.
Was it a white truck on the...
Less than 2 minutes after crossing the boundary, the passengers informed Ryan that the white truck is right on their tail.
I cannot believe that. Both on each side of the vehicle, there's a gentleman that in full military garb gets out. The one on the passenger side, he had a full automatic rifle.
What'd they say? You went over the line.
You went over the line that you are trespassing on military installation.
Inside the vehicle, the tourists, a couple from the UK and a mother and son from the East Coast, thought it was all part of the tour, actors playing their parts.
Well, we're going to let your company know that you took us the extra mile, that you put us into the situation, and they were just as much, they thought it was part of the whole process.
But they soon learned it was no act. After Lincoln County deputies arrived, the driver and passengers were pulled out, cited for trespassing, and given court dates. The projected fine, $650 apiece, and a misdemeanor conviction.
These guys are not messing around. So this is what happened to some guys from the UK that came to film at the entrance, and then they decided to brave it and go inside. And this is what they found out.
But my companions were convinced this was the gateway to the extraterrestrial secrets. We got a little bit overexcited and we strayed into the restricted zone to ask where the aliens were being kept. But after knocking on the guardhouse door, we found ourselves lying on the ground with gun barrels pointed at our heads.
Stay on the ground!
The military police had detained us for trespassing and confiscated our cameras.
You'll notice that the only pictures available for them to show in this little piece were taken from outside the boundary, because they take all your photographic equipment away and they take all the pictures and erase all the hard drives and take out the SD cards, and they won't let you leave with anything if you cross the line. So then you get arrested. If you're lucky, you get handcuffs, put face down on the desert floor until the sheriff's department arrives about 30 minutes to an hour later, and they'll carry you away to jail. You are charged with criminal trespass, and you are made to sign a series of documents stating that you will not disclose any classified information that you may have been exposed to, and also promising that you will never attempt this again. So those are the hazards of visiting Area 51 and getting overly excited. How did Area 51 appear on the national consciousness? It was really an issue that didn't interest UFO researchers much. We searched the literature. There's nary a mention of Area 51 in any of the UFO books or other literature until nearly 1990. So the base was in existence since '55. Many stealth aircraft were tested in the mid to late 50s, early 60s and on. So what was it that made the connection between Area 51 and the possibility that UFOs were somehow related? Well, Ruben and I feel that it started with this scene from the original X-Files, which is coming back tomorrow. All right. Not the original coming back, but a new one. So anyway, this is from season 1, episode 2, an episode called Deep Throat. And even though it isn't called Area 51, we know that that's what the producers were referring to. He penetrated the zone supposedly undetected, went right up to the runways and saw this black triangle UFO, which black triangles have been seen flying in that area. And that's how the Area 51 craze really got started in the national consciousness. Since then, we've been bombarded by television documentaries, books, and movies. Just a very short clip from 51, the movie, released in April 2014.
It would be easier to rob a bank than to break into Area 51.
It's the size of Connecticut. How are they going to patrol all that? No one has ever seen footage of the base, and we could be the first ones to do it. What could be bigger than that?
Before my dad disappeared, he asked me to move all of his files to someplace secret.
Everything above ground is just a front. The real base is a mile underground.
There's motion sensors, there's ammonia sensors, but we're going to get around.
These neomycin pills will mask our ammonia levels.
Thermal cameras all around the base pick your body heat. So we're going to pump freon through the suit, and they'll mask our body temperature.
Tell me why you're doing this.
Something happened to me.
I don't see green. I think he is lost something.
Whole bunch of missing time. Something is pulling me towards the base.
I don't think I'm actually going to get this far.
Let's go.
You really ready for the consequences?
There it is.
This is Area 51. Get down!
Keep moving.
Turn on the thermal. The last button pressed will be the warmest.
It goes way down there.
What is this?
Look at this. Anti-gravity.
This is not military technology. This is something else. Dude, there's white blood in there.
This is huge. Oh.
Check this out. These cages
Tiny little holding cells.
Great. Why are these down here?
We gotta find them.
So, you know, the kind of like the, let me just say that the legend of Area 51, or the legends of it, have grown. There's another movie that we're going to skip showing you, but it was also called, it was called Area 51 and released just last year. And well, we'd like to spend our remaining time talking about how we got to this state of affairs, how it is that we went from a CIA base operated jointly with the U.S. Air Force in 1955 to develop a high-flying, high-altitude surveillance plane that could overfly Russia and bring us back photographs of what they were doing with atomic weapons and their military installations. How we went from that to a place where people say UFOs are kept, the ones that have been recovered in crashes, that alien technology is reverse engineered. It really is an interesting path. So as I've pointed out already, Area 51 is tucked in the center of this vast military compound. It's a no-fly zone, and nobody's allowed to go there unless you are working at these installations. Now, these territories were set aside in 1951 for the testing of nuclear devices. It's about 1,360 square miles. And the first nuclear bomb above ground in the United States, other than the initial tests at Los Alamos, the first bomb after that was a 1 kiloton weapon dropped on Frenchman Flat on January 27, 1951. And Ruben and I kind of consider this the birth pang of Area 51. Here's a newspaper headline from the time: atomic test blast is set off in Nevada. Explosion is the first in the U.S. since 1945. Just to give you a sense, here's a film that was done a couple years later, because eventually there were hundreds of tests. And I clicked on the wrong clicking thing, so let's try that again.
Nevada, USA. This is the valley where the giant mushrooms grow. More atomic bombs have been exploded on these few hundred square miles of desert than on any other spot on the globe. Little bomb. Big bomb. Low burst. And high burst. Within the last 2 years, 20 of these colossal blasts have echoed across the great barren stretches of the Southwest. This testing ground in our own backyard just...
All right, you get the flavor. It's sort of a Chamber of Commerce piece. You know, we're exploding all these massive bombs, totally irradiating the area. There will probably be mutations for thousands of years in animals and plants, but hey, it's something special. Of course, they didn't know at that time fully the effects that these weapons would have on the landscape and the environment. So once again, just to give you a reference point, here's a Nevada test site. Here's Frenchman Flat, where the first device was set off, and then of course many other devices afterward. And Area 51 at one point in the late 50s had to be evacuated because of a radiation that resulted from a device that was set off near there, somewhere in this area. So they had to evacuate the whole staff, and they couldn't go back, I believe, for 1 or 2 years until it had been thoroughly checked out. Okay, this is an interesting slide. The total number of nuclear detonations from 1951 to 1992, 1,021. Number of above ground detonations, 100. And this, folks, is why this area of Nevada is the most radioactively contaminated site in the world, and will remain so for thousands of years. So if you want to do the tourist thing and go out there, you'll be positively glowing afterwards. So you notice that the proving grounds and the test site are roped off into areas rather arbitrarily assigned. Here's Area 29, and so that's how the 51 designator doesn't carry any special numerical significance other than it was it was just on the map.
Maybe I could just get into this note real quickly. Here we have here a map of the United States, and where it shows the spread of radioactivity throughout the country. And you could see the big star, which is the testing area, but a plume of the radiation contamination was spreading throughout, especially up in the Midwest in the North Midwest as well. And then you see the scale here. So really it tells the consequences when you do start testing outdoor explosions. So this is an interesting map here.
It looks like you all were pretty clear down here, so we were a little less clear down where I live. And Ruben, how were you doing?
We're fine so far.
So you won't be growing a third hand or a third eye or anything like that, hopefully. No, actually this was, it made a significant impact historically. So how does this factor into Area 51? Well, at that time, before spy satellites, before we really had much of an espionage activities going on in the USSR, we needed to know what the Russians were up to, because we didn't want them doing the things that we were doing, exploding these massive bombs and building these ICBMs, and we wanted to do it, but we didn't want them to do it. And we wanted to know how much of that they were doing so that we could in turn ask for more money for the military and build more weapons. So the way to do that, it was proposed, is to fly in a special plane at a very high altitude near Earth orbit and take high altitude photography of various military installations in the Soviet Union. Thus was born the dream of the U-2 spy plane. They needed a place to conduct testing of the U-2 and development of it. And, eventually the U-2 test flights came here to Del Rio, to Laughlin, where they were held for a number of years. But initially, it was there in Area 51, where Kelly Johnson of the Lockheed Aircraft Corporation came up with a concept for the U-2 and was later instrumental in developing other top secret stealth aircraft.
Like the SR-71, which we'll talk about.
So one day they were looking for a spot at which they could test this, and they ran across this amazing dry lake. As it turned out, it was Groom Lake. So they were flying in a small plane, and this is what Kelly Johnson of Lockheed said. We flew over it, and within 30 seconds, you knew it was a place. It was right by a dry lake. Man alive, we looked at that lake, and we all looked at each other. It was another Edwards, referring to Edwards Air Force Base. So we wheeled around, landed on that lake, taxied up to one end of it. It was a perfect natural landing field. And this is a 1959 aerial photograph. Kelly Johnson, an interesting character, and a character that Ruben and I have come to know by following the paper trail related to the development of Area 51, was actually a UFO believer and a UFO enthusiast. He and his wife had a couple of significant UFO sightings before he started working on secret aircraft and before Area 51 was open. Around the same time, a year or so before, he did a report to the Commander Air Technical Intelligence Center, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, which was the place where UFOs were being looked at in terms of they were being assessed in terms of whether they are a national security threat or what exactly to make of them. So the enclosure is made up of a number of reports concerning the sighting of so-called flying saucer on December 5th, 1953. And it was signed by Clarence Johnson. And what's really, really interesting is the designs he tried to sketch out. As an aircraft designer, he was trying to sketch out the designs that he saw in those craft. Notice this interesting looking boomerang craft. Now, the natural question is, to what extent did his close-up interaction with UFOs affect his later stealth aircraft designs? Because this looks like an awfully stealthy shape that he later incorporated into several of his aircraft designs. I mentioned that Area 51 is known by many names. Groom Lake, Dreamland Resort was a name that they gave it because it's such a rugged and desolate area, trying to attract contractors and others to go out there and work. They wanted to give it a name that sounded appealing, so they used Dreamland Resort. Well, conditions were very harsh there in the 50s, and many of the testimonies from some of the earlier workers suggest bitter and hostile working conditions. It was anything but a resort. So since then, supposedly Area 51, people have come forward and said that the storage, examination, and reverse engineering of crashed alien spacecraft, the study of their occupants, and the manufacture of aircraft based on alien technology is the predominant activity at Area 51. That we've had meetings or joint undertakings with extraterrestrials there, that we've developed exotic energy weapons there, that we've worked on a means of controlling the weather over targeted areas of the Earth, that supposedly we have worked on the development of time travel and teleportation technology. And of course, the development of unusual and exotic propulsion systems, which this we know to be true, such as Aurora. And it has even been suggested that Area 51 is the headquarters of a secret group that is, whose task is to maintain UFO secrecy. Ruben and I were so amused that the state of Nevada official aeronautical chart for 2013-2014 has, I mean, somebody was really having a good time with this. It has a little ET face right where Area 51 is located. I think some of those guys at the state of Nevada have a little too much time on their hands, but a cute thing. Don't try to fly anywhere near there, or interceptor jets will be flanking you on both sides before you know it. So we talked about the U-2, which was developed by Clarence Kelly for Lockheed. Now what's really, really interesting is anybody, if you could go back in time, knowing what you know about Area 51, then beginning in 55, you would be looking very carefully for signs of everything that was going on there. Well, even people who didn't know anything about it until much later, there were a lot of leaks, lots of information leaked out.
You'll see that very shortly in some of the newspaper articles during that time that gradually start describing the existence of Area 51.
In 1955, there was a press release sent to all the media saying that a small satellite Nevada test site installation, which would include a runway, dormitories, and a few other buildings, had been constructed. So there were many, many signs. And Ruben and I, when we have longer time for our presentation, we go through all of the incredible leaks of information that occurred over the years.
We call it the oops factor.
That's our oops file. And there were secret aircraft being tested that crashed. There was, you know, all kinds of crashes, all kinds of leaks. There were satellite pictures taken by the Skylab astronauts of Area 51, and that was a big oops.
So did the Russians.
The Russians. And a very famous gentleman whose dad is known for the development of the Lear aircraft is the one who, on an interview with Coast to Coast on June 29th, I'm sorry, he talked about this in an interview with George Knapp on Coast to Coast, and I'm not sure that that date is correct, well, yeah, that's correct. He talked about how back in the summer of 1977, he visited the outer perimeter of Area 51, and he was the first UFO speaker or person interested in UFOs who started speaking about UFO technology being at Area 51. So John Lear was the first. And we know that, you know, there was further development of secret aircraft. There's just a few of them that have been developed. And now we have the latest SR-72 Son of Blackbird, which is under development. It's going to be the next big stealth super fighter that still has a way to go. And then since the 1990s, there's been this top secret project which people call Aurora. An interesting name, anyone that's familiar with the Aurora UFO crash in Texas of 1897, anybody ever heard about that? Jim Mars, who was a speaker at this conference last year, is an expert in that. So this is a hypersonic plane, Mach 5 or 6, using an extremely new kind of engine technology that some people refer to as pulse detonation. Did you have something to say, Ruben, or are you just stretching? Go on. So just quickly in our remaining short time, eventually over the course of time, military bases became the focus of UFO researchers who were interested in knowing where stuff recovered in UFO crashes was taken. The first association was in 1947, the crash at Roswell. The documents that were put out afterwards said that material had been taken to Wright-Patterson Air Base, which even today is associated with UFO research activity. So Wright-Patterson was actually the first, long before Area 51. And this was the newspaper article. It said, "The mystery of the flying saucers took a new twist tonight with the disclosure that the Army Air Forces has recovered a strange object in New Mexico and is forwarding it to Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio for examination." It was known as Wright Field at that time.
I don't know if we have time for Lazar real quickly.
We're just gonna, I'm just gonna summarize. They said it had been sent to Fort Worth by Superfortress for transshipment to the AAF Experimental Center. So very little mention of Area 51 until 1987. John Lear again, a commercial air pilot for years, the son of the founder of the Lear Jet Corporation, issued a statement in which he said that Groom Lake is one of this nation's most secret test centers, and said that the base had a huge underground facility constructed specifically to hide UFOs and extraterrestrials. He also claimed that the U.S. government uses Area 51 as a place to study UFO technology. And shortly after he made the statements, a gentleman came forward claiming to have worked at Area 51. Let me see if I can get my mouse going here. I think I just crashed my PowerPoint, but we were near the end. Ruben, do you want to just briefly summarize the Bob Lazar story?
Gentleman that claimed that he had worked in Area 51, and he was interviewed by a journalist, well-known journalist, Mr. George Knapp, and Mr. Lazar basically described what these crafts look like. He actually had a chance to work in one and described a propulsion system. We do have a number of video interviews with him, but he and slowly we're getting other testimony. But what we wanted just to give you is just a really snapshot about Area 51, some of the mysteries behind it, all the aviation testing that was going on, as well as some of the lore that's behind it. And so here, but the bottom line is, this was a base that was supposedly never existed until 2 years ago. Finally, the Air Force had admitted, yes, there is an Area 51. So who knows what other secrets that will be coming out in the future. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and close this part of our presentation. So why don't we go ahead and we'll break for lunch, and we'll have you back at 1 o'clock. And then we'll start there with Marta Kristen with Lost in Space. So thank you so much. You've been a wonderful audience, and love to have you back very shortly, and enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.